Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, joined by the Ruckettes, star editorial writer Yael Abouhaka, Urban League CEO Gwen Grant, media consultant Mary O'Halloran, and attorney Steve Marakian. Next Tuesday is Choose Day, as voters go to the polls and choose which candidates and issues to support or reject. On the Kansas City, Missouri ballot, 3 questions. Question 1 involving renewing the health levy for 9 years. Question 2 would close a loophole that allows nonprofit groups to avoid paying some taxes while holding conventions here. And question 3 would bar any city financial support for defense industry facilities such as the Honeywell plant. Wyandotte Countyans will also be choosing a new mayor, and we'll get to that. But first, what does the Kansas City Star want the outcome to be on these 3 ballot issues I just mentioned?
Well, I'm just super excited, as I know most Kansas Cityans are, about this April the 2nd election. It's a yes, yes, no vote, which is basically what Sly James, everybody
yes
else
on the health levy.
They have yes on the health levy, which is an extension of the health levy that came up 8 years ago. It'd be for 9 years, and it's basically $45 a year for owner of a $100,000 home. Does do some good for the ambulance service, certainly for indigent care. I personally opposed it the first time around because of all kinds of philandering the city council was doing at the time with the budget, and that philandering still goes on. The problem is, well, now if you don't have this money, then they really are going to cut off some indigent care. And, you know, it has been approved by the people. I wish they would have done like 4 or 5 years, and then seen how the Affordable Care Act was going, and then we could tell Truman, well, no, look, you know, you're not getting as much money. The people are going to cut back from the local perspective.
The extension is for 9 years.
It is for 9 years.
Perhaps 3 or 4.
Right.
And I think we've talked about this before, and others tend to agree. All right, question 2.
And question 2, which I quite frankly think is the easiest one of all. I mean, Kansas City, Missouri is the only city that does not charge nonprofits this, basically a hotel tax. And it cost the city about $2 million a year in lost revenue. Well, they pay it everywhere else they go, Branson, St. Louis, anywhere else. On the Kansas side, they go to Overland Park. So we're not going to lose convention business over this. And it's not necessarily punishing the nonprofits that much anyway. I mean, they're going to work out the hotel deals they can work out privately with the hotel operators anyway. So I think that's a no-brainer. So that's a yes on 2. The last one, to me, is actually the most intriguing one. And right now, the Star has said, no, we don't want to just say, well, here's one little pocket of employers and jobs that we're going to say no more subsidies to. I think you mentioned that you know, defense contractors could not get subsidies in the future from the city. Yeah. Obviously, the plant's been built out there, the non-nuclear plant. It will not affect the Honeywell plant. But if somebody came in and said, hey, we're going to make widgets, and these widgets are only going to be for the Honeywell plant, they could still come here. And this is my kind of quandary in the they could still come here. They just couldn't get city subsidy. Well, I'm an anti-city subsidy guy in some cases, and this is one of those cases where it's like, God, I'd love to vote yes, but I mean, why just select one group?
Steve, we don't have to do anything to cause people who are building things for defense not to want to come to Kansas City, do we?
No, I mean, amazingly, I agree with Yael on everything he just said, particularly the last one. I think to focus on one particular industry, defense industry, that kind of thing, I think is bad policy.
These are people who are anti-nuclear weapons.
and I think, but the other 2, again, my concern, I don't think I'd vote against it if I were voting. I don't live in Kansas City, Missouri, but I don't like the 9 years on the health tax. I think it's too long, and for exactly the reason Yael just pointed out. He's very astute this morning. We don't know how the Affordable Care Act is going to all shake out, and I think that's too long for this tax.
Mary, are you in agreement with what Yael said essentially on yes, no?
It pains me to say no for sometimes different reasons. Right. Having formerly been in charge of the Department of Energy's public face here, and now those plants used to and still do to some degree, our Department of Energy facilities, the people that are talking about doing this are wonderful Kansas City citizens who don't think the taxpayers of this city should be paying any more of their tax dollars to help finance weapons facilities that the federal government can jolly well pay for themselves and intend to do long into the future.
All right, let's go over to Wyandotte County because our time is limited. The Star is backing Mark Holland in the race for mayor.
Yes.
One quick reason. Why Holland over Ann Murguia?
I mean, I keep coming back to it. I've talked to both of them. I've been to forums with both of them where they share their thoughts. And I think Ann, to take Ann very quickly, I think she's done a pretty good job of being a in-district council or in-district unified government commissioner. She knows the people in her district. She's done a pretty good job. She knows the interest of what's happening there. Mark, as an at-large representative, has looked at, not just what a district's doing, but actually what the whole city needs, what the whole county needs, but basically Kansas City, Kansas. I think they would both be high energy people, which is good. I do think that Mark has, and I think the campaign has showed this, the temperament for being kind of a person who's going to bring people together. And Kansas City, Kansas right now is in that situation where they still need to bring people together and work together on things. They don't necessarily need somebody who's just high energy.
It needs to stay peaceful because for many years, elections in Kansas City, Kansas were not very peaceful.
That's true.
One quick correction from last week. Someone apparently inadvertently said that the FOP was supporting Mark Holland. Well, it's in fact, it's Ann
Actually, it was
Murguia.
accurate. Actually, it was accurate.
Well,
the Fraternal Order of Police, the Sheriff's Deputies Lodge, which is Lodge 4, I believe, endorsed Mark Holland, and that's what I said last week. The Fraternal Order of Police, as Yale knows, who are the city's police, endorsed Ann Murguia. So it was an accurate statement.
So the key.
One is one lodge, one is the other.
So law enforcement agencies or organizations are supporting both Murguia and Mark Holland. By the way, the two of them will be Nick Haynes' guest Friday evening at 7:30 on Kansas City Week in Review. So if you're a Wyandotte Countyan or just interested, as you point out, in the region, it's an important program to watch. And the next mayor of Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, will be a very important, crucial individual choice by the citizens over there. Apparently, the success of the red light program using cameras to nab drivers who run stop signs is tempting the City Council to give the green light to a similar initiative. The Kansas City, Missouri Council may use some existing cameras and perhaps add new ones to catch speeding drivers. The camera program is designed to reduce traffic accidents. Oh, and by the way, in the process, add revenue to the city's coffers. No doubt there will be legal challenges. Nonetheless, do you think this new initiative is worth pursuing, Gwen?
Well, if you look at how successful the traffic lights cameras have been at the intersections, then you would say yes, it's worthy of pursuing. It's worthy of further study because it did decrease the number of incidents of
right angle crashes.
Yes, right angle T-bone crashes and people running through stoplights. So that made sense, and then the city made money, as you said. I mean, they net about $2 million annually on fines for people running red lights. So it stands to reason that they would increase their revenue if they have lights to catch people speeding. Now, do I like that idea? As someone who's had a traffic ticket, a speeding ticket every now and then.
Or two, or three.
One or two. The concern I have about it is that the way it is currently set up, the lights, the camera focuses on the vehicle and not the driver, so you don't know who's in the vehicle. And I'm sure they chose that path because of privacy concerns. And you could catch folks in some compromising positions, perhaps. But, however, if I'm not driving the car, I'm still accountable for it. And so, you get the tickets, you've allowed someone to use your vehicle, they get a speeding ticket, later down the road you find out you get this thing in the mail. So I think there may be some people concerned about that, but it's from a city perspective, when you look at the data, you've had a decrease in the number of accidents, you've had a decrease in the number of people running red lights, and it's created a much safer situation. And if it'll create safer, traffic conditions, I'm sure the city's going to do it.
Well, there have got to be legal questions that arise over something like this, Steve.
There are, and I don't dispute the data that Yale has put out in various forums, and I think probably the data supports the idea that it may have some safety benefit. My concern, as primarily as a criminal defense lawyer and also as someone in my practice who's involved in civil liberties on a regular basis, I'm concerned that we always have to look at the balance between public safety and civil liberties. There are lots of things we could do in our society where we could say, gee, it'd be a lot safer. For example, we could say you don't have a right to be free from searches, or you don't have a right to against self-incrimination. We can, but we don't do that because we say that civil liberties trump that. It's a fine line here. I will tell you this: the fact that there are legal challenges to this and good legal arguments against it is one of the reasons that, in reality, the way the city has handled this over the years is, if you contest this, oftentimes the city won't proceed because they don't want to be confronted with the question, for example, that Gwen raised of, does the defendant have to come in and then prove his innocence, or does the city, if you contest it, have to prove that you actually were driving, not just your license plate, but that you were driving? And with speeding, it raises the issue as well of calibration of devices.
Well, I'm wondering how you detect that and how you prove it,
with the
Mary.
camera.
Well, I agree with everything. It's a great description of what's going on, but it is all about the money. I mean, is there anybody that doubts that this is such an efficient way to raise
Yale
funds?
doubts.
Yeah, I'll doubt you in a second, but go ahead. Go ahead and present your argument.
Leave your doubts someplace,
Present your argument.
Yale. Come on, be
We
quiet.
got to move along here.
Proceed, Mary.
If you'll be quiet, I'll proceed. It's hopeless with him. It is. If it wasn't possible to efficiently raise lots of money with much lower administrative costs, we wouldn't be talking about doing this. God bless the people who invented this. What a gold mine they struck. Because all over the United States, cities are saying, oh, what a wonderful, effective way to bring in the bucks. As a matter of fact, it's far more effective and efficient than having a police officer stationed there. I don't like intrusion, but I am absolutely certain that our futures are going to be, we're going to be under surveillance 24 hours a day, whether we like it or not.
And that's
All
what I
right,
don't like.
very quickly, Yale.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of this whole system.
I'm a big fan, certainly, of looking at this new system, and I think, Stevie raised some privacy questions which have to be answered, but to Mary's point, yes, there is a money angle. I mean, I do up front a minute. But if you're catching lawbreakers and getting money, well, there's nothing wrong with that. You just said, you have police officers who catch lawbreakers. And I think reducing speeding, every study shows that makes it safer.
It's a win-win
I think it is
situation
a win-win.
for the city government.
Yes.
All right. Now we are going to venture from our usual format and ask some very special guest Rockettes to introduce our next topic.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
Of course, the Village People with Steve Marakian's all-time favorite tune. Steve's the one with the Indian headdress, I believe. The Y is planning a major $40 million building in downtown Kansas City at 10th and Grand. New structure will supplant the current facility and will also put out of service YMCA's in Kansas City, Kansas, Raytown, and Independence. So the obvious first question about all of this, why?
Well, maybe we could just
Mary.
continue from the last topic. It's all about the money, isn't it? Well, I think the Kevin Collison's article is probably pretty thorough in the Star. They have tremendous backing to build this major. They have a CEO who duplicated this or did it before in Memphis and Nashville rather, and built a very high quality downtown YMCA that had all manner of amenities. But it's just amazing to me. KC Kansas has 1,000 members, apparently, and it was at Raytown that had 600.
No, Raytown had 1,000. KCK had 600.
KCK
had the most.
It's whatever, but hundreds and hundreds of people are currently involved in the Independence, Raytown, and KCK YMCAs. And is it not possible to have YMCAs in smaller areas and keep them going? Apparently, they don't want to, because they didn't consult with local people prior to making this big announcement. They didn't give them the courtesy of a while to come up with a different plan or perhaps a partnership.
When you say they didn't want them to, tell me who the they
well,
is.
you got I don't
people
know
who are supporting the
individual
downtown
humans,
Kansas
but
City?
the CEO, Mr.
Okay.
Bird, and David Bauer said it best. This is a departure from the age-old message of the Ys,
Yeah.
that is to improve the quality of life of the people where they live.
Gwen, you said you used to work at a Y. Do we still need Ys?
Well, absolutely. I was a YMCA professional for more than 10 years and have worked closely with David and his team currently. And I think the challenging situation they're in is it is about money. It is about declining revenues over time and the impact that it has on an organization. And so if they are to keep those organizations there, then there's got to, those branches, there has to be a whole lot more revenue to sustain that. So if they went through a very lengthy strategic planning process to ultimately arrive at this decision.
What goes on at the Y? Is it all athletic activity?
Well, no, and see, this is the challenge. Here's the challenge.
Do people still live at the Y?
Well, no. One of the
most places
challenges that David has is been trying to return the Y to being more community-minded and whole person-minded than it was in the past. When it went from being that when I was at the Y, we had community service programs, community outreach programs, as well as fitness programs. Then the Y did a shift and went primarily total fitness, and every center was just a fitness center. And it had no other connection to the community than fitness. And so you have a membership base
Sounds
there.
like the Y
but
has
it's
to
not-
determine what its mission is
well,
and
it is
pursue it.
it is
Yeah.
returning
They've
to
determined
its full mission,
Well,
and I
it's-
think you have to, but the bottom line is if you don't have the money
Yeah.
to operate those facilities, you're going to rethink
and
how you do
they
business.
don't have $40 million to build this building yet either. It's a fund
No, they
drive.
have, I mean,
It's
the
a
whole thing is
fundraising
a
effort.
$60 million. Here's the departure I have from Gwen. I'm talking to people and certainly have some more interviews to do with other people in the near future. But I think the Y looks bad in this case because it did not work with the communities
what I
involved
said.
before the announcement. I mean, they said this, they had this 2-year thing. Well, 2 years ago, nobody was talking to David Bauer. 2 weeks ago they were, or 2 weeks before the announcement. That's not enough time for a community, which you're Raytown, and Independence specifically,
Well,
to do something.
We got to
The
move on,
question
but all
you
these
have-
communities are upset, right? Or people
Yeah,
in
and
those
Raytown's the
communities
most,
are upset.
Independence, and KCK
And
understands
There's no
it, I
reason we
think.
can't have that. There can't be a great YM downtown and one in Independence or Raytown.
Well, in any case, it's a
Well,
nice
money-
asset to
money is
downtown
the
Kansas
reason
City
that you can't
if it
do
comes
it.
to
Yeah,
fruition.
that's-
All right.
We hope so.
Money's the reason.
Some local Republicans are trying to find a way to lure the 2016 GOP convention to Kansas City, 40 years after the last one held here. The 1976 event brought Kansas City worldwide attention and was the crown jewel of an era called Kansas City's prime time that included construction of the Truman Sports Complex and Kansas City International Airport. Perhaps more intriguing than where the party will meet is what the party will mean. Will it change its stance on social issues? What about immigration, Obamacare? Is the party open to change? Should it be? Steve?
Well, the answer to your question is yes, certainly it should be. Hopefully it will be. And I think, the question the Republican Party has to answer right now, at least if they want to win national elections, is do they want to focus more on how do we win the election, or do they want to focus more on what they perceive to be what is right for America? Because they may not be the same thing. And that's going to be the big issue here in the next 3 years, is what kind of candidate is the Republican Party going to have, and what is their platform going to be? And that's what the big battle is right now. National, or I should say locally, in the various states, Republicans are doing very well with governorships and so forth. But at the national level, right now, unless the Republican Party were to make some very significant changes, you would have to say the likelihood of a Republican winning the presidency any time in the foreseeable future is almost non-existent. Now, should they change to win that office? It's going to depend a lot on what happens in the next election, whether they take back the Senate, which is a possibility. It's a long shot. If they have the Senate and the House, they may say, we're going to stick with basically our old formula, even if we don't win the
Let
presidency.
me ask you a
It's
couple of
tough decision
quick
for them.
things. It seems to me oftentimes the problem with the GOP is not so much the position on an issue, but the way it's presented and the tone with which it is presented.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is obviously what's referred to as messaging and so forth. We hear these kinds of terms tossed around. But you're absolutely right. The part of the problem with the Republican Party has been that, rightly or wrongly, perception is reality, and people look at the Republican Party as being a party of old people like me, white old men, okay? And that may or may not be fair, but you can have the same message presented by, say, Marco Rubio and by me, and they might listen.
you can't.
No, you can't.
No, listen.
No, you can't.
You can.
We're not buying Marco Rubio either.
People
Steve.
will buy Marco
No,
Rubio
we're
before they'll
not.
buy me.
No, no.
Okay.
It's your policy.
Ronald Reagan was an old white man.
Yeah, but he wasn't-
But
you
he
know,
didn't agree with you. Ronald Reagan would
yeah.
have a very hard time, don't you think, Mike, getting the nomination with this Republican Party?
Yes, I
It
agree.
is more than perception. It's actually true that the platform and the candidates of the Republican Party, as we know it today, it ran against President Obama, is actually opposed to immigration. Romney actually wanted self-deportation as the way to get rid of
entirely
this
untrue.
panic. They
Entirely
actually were opposed to women's reproductive choice in this country. Oh,
Steve,
God.
it was a part
There
of
you
the
go.
Republican
There's
platform.
Well, but you know,
they actually are opposed to
well, I don't
taxing
think
the
most.
rich.
I don't think that's true of most
But it
members of the
was
Republican Party.
Republican platform that they
Yeah.
approved at the Republican convention. I mean, come on, be
Actually,
serious.
Cruz, it
All
was.
of those
But-
things.
but, you
That's
know,
what you
you know,
approved.
platforms don't
but those are
dictate
your
how a
policies.
party's going to
Those are the
behave.
things that you support, Mike.
Economic
Gail, I want to ask you about
Yes, I like it.
about the likelihood or the unlikelihood of a Republican National Convention in Kansas City
Okay.
in 2016. Annie Presley, pretty knowledgeable
Yeah.
Republican fundraiser and strategist, said there are only two things keeping Kansas City from getting the convention: $75 million and a 1,000-room downtown hotel.
Yeah, I think it is a long shot. Absolutely. One is the hotel, as Annie and many others would say. And I will say very quickly, I sure hope we don't build a 1,000-room convention hotel just to get to this one convention. But the other thing is, well, do we have the people, the movers and shakers, Republican movers and shakers, to raise the 30 or 40, 50, 60 million, whatever it takes to lure the GOP here? And I'm not sure we do. I mean, both the states are red states right now, certainly Kansas, and Missouri certainly to a degree is, with the state office, as you accurately noted. They don't have a lot of the governor and all that stuff. But do we have big movers and shakers who are raising much money? I really don't think we will. I mean, unless the Koch brothers step forward to do it.
One of the things
Yeah,
you
that's
ought
a
to
good
take
point.
note of.
So when you say no more talking, it makes you married.
Yeah, no more talking because we do have to go on. In this
go.
week's Roast and Toast segment, we're going to drop the roast and spend our time toasting the late radio and television personality Walt Bodine, who died at the age of 92 last Sunday. One should not use the term legendary too loosely or too often. But Mary, I think we're safe in describing Walt Bodine that way.
Oh, I think that everyone that has ever known him and everyone now that is in a position to toast him in his very wonderful life would use the word legendary. I think it's fair to say that he was a legend in his own time, but not a legend in his own head. Walt was not necessarily a humble man, but he was somebody who was so important to the people of Kansas City that they had immense affection for him. And it wasn't only because he was a great journalist. And I do think he was a great journalist. He understood, and I tried to, in my own mind, because we're good friends since almost the week I arrived in the city, understand exactly how he saw himself as a journalist. He thought very, very passionately that the media belongs to the people, that the purpose of great journalism was to create a debate, dialogue, and conversation about the issues of the day and the trends of the time. And so that his whole career, from his night beat show on WHB to KMBZ's nighttime shows to his wonderful career in public radio, he actually meant it when he said, what do you think of that? Or how do you feel about that?
What do you think? What do you think of that?
What do you say to that, rather?
What do you say to that? But
actually
you know,
meant it.
Walt Bodine was doing talk radio before there was talk radio, or before there were talk radio stations, and he was never a controversial, opinionated host on the air. It seems to me he would, on occasion, give his view, but he wasn't selling a specific viewpoint and trying to cause others to adhere to it.
It's the end of an era, Mike, in the sense that he did not see himself as being there promoting a particular political philosophy, although he was a capital D and small d Democrat. But I'd emphasize the small d. I was interviewed by him many times, and I was also there to watch him interview. He was so well prepared. He knew how to listen to the guest and to draw out the important point, whether he was talking about squirrels in the backyard or with Jane Flynn and historic places, or the food that he loved at the diners and drive-ins around this town. He understood how to relate to ordinary people, and he thought it was important. And they loved him for it.
Hardest thing for a talk show host to do is listen. I mean, and that's absolutely true. I know the three of you weren't acquainted with him personally, but I'm sure heard him over the years. Any quick observations?
Well, Dave Helling of the Star had a great comment, because Dave and I are compatriots from Shawnee Mission West many, many years ago, but it's exactly right. I mean, I remember listening to WHB. I do remember listening to the nighttime show that Walt had at the time. It was just a talk show. You know, after as Dave said, right after all, they played all the records, you go, God, he's talking about news. And of course, the late 60s, I'm in junior high and high school, and the late 60s were pretty important times. But, Mary's right, he wasn't the flaming guy out there. I mean, in a way like Steve Kraske, the Star, is now. I mean, Steve can handle a wide range of topics, and he only has another 40, 45 years to go to achieve Walt's iconic status.
Quickly, Gwen.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I've enjoyed listening to Walt over the years, and I was really impressed, when they fired him at KCUR and how the community, said, "Oh no," they realized what a huge mistake.
Yeah, that was a previous management over there.
Right.
He was fired, and it was front page story in the Star the next day, and I think the next day he was rehired.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for your observations.
His son Tom put it this way, Mike. I asked him how he was doing and his other brothers and sisters, and he said, "We're doing fine because the whole city is mourning with us."
Memorial service is Saturday at 1 o'clock at Unity on the Plaza. Walt Bodine gone at the age of 92. And that is Ruckus for this week. For more local coverage, join Nick Haynes for Kansas City Week in Review Friday evening at 7:30. Ruckus is rebroadcast Sunday mornings at 11:30. Now, on behalf of the Ruckettes and the Ruckus crew, I'm Mike Shannon. Thanks for watching, and good night.